Hello and welcome back to my channel. There is so much to get into. What has been happening this week in the courts of It Ends With Never? Back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and we're gonna get into all of it. And just get your emotional lip gloss ready because there was a loss today for the Wayfarer people, and we're gonna talk about it. But first, I want to quickly talk about the Karen Reid trial. We'll talk about that, and then we'll get into It Ends With Never. Just get ready. Grab that emotional lip gloss. We're going in. You're in frame with Mandy Magnan. Is anyone following the Karen Reid trial? I honestly wasn't and didn't know anything about it until about, 72 hours ago. Like, I kept hearing about the trial, and I figured, honestly, that it was, this sounds so bizarre, but I thought it was, like, something to do with, like, a housewife, because doesn't Karen Reid sound like a real housewife's name? I don't know. I didn't know anything about it until I saw a woman get on the stand. I watched a clip of a video, and immediately I was like, that girl is lying. Why is she lying? It was so blatantly obvious. And then I went down the rabbit hole of what exactly is this trial. And wow, what we need to know that's important. Massachusetts, that's where it happened. It occurred on January 29th, 2022. The victim was John O'Keefe. He's a 46-year-old Boston police officer. And the defendant is Karen Reid, who was John O'Keefe's girlfriend and also a former professor. Now, what's so unbelievable is imagine being innocent, allegedly innocent, right? Innocent until proven guilty. Okay, imagine being innocent, being charged with this man's murder. That first trial, you're good to go. It was dismissed, hung jury. Okay? Then they come back and charge you again. She is on trial the second time for this man's murder, facing second-degree murder charges, manslaughter while operating under the influence, and leaving the scene of a fatal accident. Now she's doing it a second time. And this is messy because it's a small town with a bunch of small town cops, you feel me? So there is just so much shadiness happening in this case. Everybody's lying. Everybody's covering something up. The investigators didn't even actually search the house or do interview the people whose house it was where, O'Keefe's body was found. They covered up so much stuff, even to the point that her back rear light was cracked. It was missing a little piece because there's a video of her backing into the vehicle when she was leaving her driveway. They have a police officer coming who said that when he first saw the vehicle, it was just a crack and a small piece was missing. But then after it went to the station and these police officers did their investigation, the entire light was missing. And now they're saying, oh, that's proof that she backed into him. But the glass from the scene doesn't match the glass from the vehicle. Shady. On top of that, so this man, O'Keefe, was found outside of this person's house who he went to, who was a police officer. He was found out there in the morning. Okay. But they have the snowblower who went by who's saying that he wasn't there when he went by. So the defense is saying that he got into an altercation inside the house and they framed him and put him out there hours later, and now they're all covering it up and framing it to look like Karen Reid did it a second time. And these people are lying on the stand. Okay, this group of individuals, they had group texts that were deleted. The main guy, he took his SIM card out of his phone and destroyed it. Okay, there was dog bites, and they got rid of their dog, their longtime dog. Then right after they did renovations on their house, removing their carpet as well as this big cinder block that was there, even though they had already done those house renovations a few years ago, allegedly. There are so many things, like the lead investigator didn't even question the people who lived at the house or even went into the house and searched the house, even though it looked like the victim was in an altercation. So many things, like lost evidence. There's no trail log. The lead investigator didn't even write a report on his findings of that investigation. Shady, shady, shady. And this woman is like, have to sit there and hear these people lie and lie and lie. I can't even believe this went to the courts a second time, because all of these people, from what I heard, the people testifying, there's more evidence against them than there ever is or was about Karen Reed. This poor woman, my gosh, but I am tuned in. And now this lady is a liar, liar, pants on fire, because she was trying to find that man's phone. She's saying that she accidentally pocket dialed him 7 times. Are we sure about that? Let's just watch a little clip, because it is just so funny.
You indicate every single call after that was missed, and you deny making those calls.
I'm not denying it, I just don't remember.
You've previously given explanation for what those calls were, these 7 calls that were missed between about 12:29 and about 12:50. That's 19 minutes. You'll agree, correct?
Yes.
If you divide 19 by 7, that's about every 2.5 minutes or 2.7 minutes, your phone is calling John O'Keefe's phone, correct?
Correct.
And then she just says, it was an accident. They were butt dials. 7 times in like 19 minutes she butt dialed. How many butt dials? And then he goes in and asks her, like, how is that possible? How many? She's like, oh, I do it all the time. She's like, I was probably texting, so then when I put my phone in my pocket, I called. And he's like, well, if you were texting, don't you have to go into the phone app to make a phone call? And she's like, I don't know. But the whole thing, I could play clip after clip after clip of these people lying. Their answers don't make sense. They don't make sense. Okay? Even this one first responder who last year in his testimony said that when he had talked to Miss Karen Reed, she was saying, I don't know, did you think I hit him? And then after meeting with the prosecutor 3 times in the last 2 weeks, including the night before his testimony, now his testimony is, she said, I hit him 3 times in order to match the other person's testimony. And he's saying that he didn't remember it correctly the first time and that this is actually what happened. And his memory is sharper now than it was at the incident. I don't think that's how memories work, but there is so much shadiness. Like, you could watch it and you're just like, how is this still going on? How is this not dismissed by now? And also, there should be some people up there being charged with his murder, but it's the people testifying. And on top of that, the lead detective, the investigator, Michael Proctor, he was later fired for his misconduct over this case. So it's like, what? I can't even with this. I can't believe she has to defend herself not once, but twice against this man's murder. I bet the relationship wasn't even worth all of this trouble. You feel me? Like, oh my gosh. Anyway, stay strong, Karen Reed, because these lies are being found out one by one by one. And I personally think that there is a huge cover up here. And it's just so blatantly obvious when you really hear these people's testimonies and you look at the evidence, and you could just tell it's like so planted. It was a shoddy investigation, and there is just a huge cover up. It's super shocking to know that this can happen to anyone. Okay, if you're ready, let's do it. Let's get into It Ends With Us, because there is just so much back and forth and things happening this week. And like I said, the Wayfair people today have taken an L, okay? And this is going to happen. There's going to be wins and losses, and this is a pretty significant one, and also it's against Stephanie motherfucking Jones. So I really didn't want to see this coming, because as you guys know here, I think that she is the one who started it all. Again, my opinion and alleged, because I feel like if the Wayfair people would have stayed with Stephanie Jones at Jonesworks, Leslie Sloan would have never got those text messages. They were handed over because Stephanie Jones was peed off, okay? So let's just see. We're just going to do some quick housekeeping to just see what happened, like what is going on. So basically there is a lot of them that is honestly just lawyers being brought in for different people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of that is that kind of stuff. But Sarah Nathan, who is Melissa Nathan's sister, who works for the New York Post, has been subpoenaed by Leslie Sloan, and she's fighting that. So she's entered a declaration to squash the subpoena that was filed to her by the Sloan parties. So this is the subpoena that was brought in. She has a declaration. So she's saying that it was private sources. Yes, she did write a bunch of stories about the It Ends With Us, Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni at the time, but she's using her First Amendment rights as well as her journaling rights in order to get that subpoena squashed so that she doesn't have to disclose her sources. And then you see that she's added some lawyers. And then the Wayfair people have now put in a memorandum of law in opposition, which we'll look at very quickly. And that is against Ryan Reynolds, who asked for sanctions against them. They have already responded to Blake Lively. I think it was 2 days prior to that. So this is the one for Ryan Reynolds. And now we have another motion of Amicus Briefs. These amicus are getting a little bit out of control, and I would say slightly desperate on the Blake Lively side of things, because it's just getting like, it's too much. Okay, the judge gets it. Jed Wallace has entered a notice of filing a document. Then Stephanie motherfucking Jones put in a reply reprimandum of law in support for her motion to get dismissed of the amended third-party complaint. She already put in a motion, so this is just furthermore like another one, I guess, to try to get out of this. And then this is all just to do with like lawyers, more lawyers joining. Everyone's getting more lawyers and lawyers and lawyers. Nobody wants to be a part of this. Like, get me out of here. Then we have more amicus briefs in support of Blake Lively. And then Judge Lehman has responded to a motion, and that's what we're going to talk about first. And yeah, let's get into that one. It's not good. Okay, it's not good if you're on Team Wayfarer, Team Justin Baldoni. Let's just talk about it. Slap on that emotional lip gloss, and let's just quickly read it. Are you ready? Okay. So the Wayfarer people, they served a subpoena to Edgeworth Security. Edgeworth Security is the security company that Stephanie motherfucking Jones used. I guess she hired them when all these stories started coming out. She claims that she hired Edgeworth when, Business Insider had Who's Afraid of Stephanie Jones coming out. Then there was a Twitter account and all these social media accounts coming out and disclosing all of this information about her and how horrible she is to work for as well as be a client of. Stephanie Jones has come back and said that she hired that company before anything happened with It Ends With Us. Therefore, she's invoking the attorney-client privilege and that the subpoena against the Edgeworth security team should be denied. Wayfarer came back and said, well, actually, that's not it. I don't think there is an attorney-client privilege, and we are seeking whatever documents from this time to this time. So they have been going back and forth to see if Edgeworth should follow the subpoena or not. Well, sad news bears, and I hate to admit it, but it's a win for Stephanie Jones as well as Edgeworth Security. And this is a big loss for Wayfair. Now, it's okay. You're going to win some. You're going to lose some. It doesn't mean their case is going to get thrown out or Wayfair is going to lose any of the more motions or anything like that. It just means in this particular motion, what they were asking for has been denied and Stephanie Jones was granted. So let's just look over exactly what Judge Lyman had to say regarding this. So Jonesworks and Stephanie Jones, collectively Jonesworks, moved for a protective order prohibiting the Wayfarer parties from enforcing a subpoena dated February 25th, 2025 and served on third-party Edgeworth Security LLC. A party seeking to invoke the crime fraud exception must demonstrate that there is probable cause. One, that the client communication or attorney work product in question was itself in furtherance of the crime or fraud. And two, to believe that the particular communication with counsel or attorney work product was intended in some way to facilitate or to conceal the criminal activity. The Wayfair parties have not demonstrated that the crime fraud exception applies. For one, the Wayfair parties do not even attempt to argue that any particular communication that has been withheld was in furtherance of the conduct that they argue was criminal. Jonesworks has attached a privileged log to its motion for a protective order. The log reflects that the communications regarded requests for and reports of pre-litigation consulting and forensic services related to anticipated or ongoing defamation litigation. Many of the communications occurred months before or after Abel was purportedly falsely imprisoned, and the Wayfair parties have not explained how they could have furthered any such conduct. For another, the Wayfair parties have not presented evidence to support their allegations that Jonesworks committed a crime or a fraud. The motion for a protective order prohibiting the Wayfair parties from enforcing the subpoena is granted. Now, I think it is quite interesting because I think, I will speak for me, but I think some of you might agree with me that we do think Jonesworks committed a crime or a fraud by the fake lawsuit and the sham subpoena that was served in order for Leslie Sloan and Blake Lively to get her hands on Jennifer Abel's text messages, private communications, and phone records. Also, I do think that Edgeworth was involved the day that Jonesworks escorted Jennifer Abel into the office. They went through her laptop as well as her phone, took her phone. I mean, I think that there was crimes and fraud committed for sure by Stephanie Jones in this whole thing because, like I said before, if Wayfair would have stayed with Stephanie Jones, we would never be here. And I think that this is it hurts. I mean, an L is an L, and this is definitely a loss for Wayfair, but I do trust that the judge, he's following the laws. And unfortunately, legality sometimes and morality, they're not the same thing. So morally, we can think whatever we want about Stephanie Jones. And we could think that she is morally corrupt and that what she did was wrong and awful and mean and cruel and distasteful and et cetera, but is it legally, right? So legality versus morality, I think, is kind of what I'm on the fence here now dealing with because, I'm not going to go against the judge, but yeah, they're not going to be able to get Edgeworth's communications or at least that part of the subpoena. So they're going to have to go through Stephanie Jones and hope that she does give them what they ask for in discovery. It's an L and it sucks because it's a win for Stephanie motherfucking Jones. That's all I'm going to say about that right now. I'm so sorry. I wish I had better news, but it's, there's going to be wins, there's going to be losses. I know that, everyone was kind of saying how the case is crumbling and Blake Lively is voluntarily withdrawing her 10th and 11th causes, and that was, a big celebration for a couple of days, but then this is a loss. And it's not against the Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds part of it, but definitely for Stephanie Jones and figuring out just how deep this little collusion that they all kind of did, how deep it runs. They're not going to be able to get it from Edgeworth Security. And now we get to another amicus brief that has been filed. Child USA, what is you doing here? What are you doing here? What child is involved in this case? What are you doing here? It's a very strange amicus brief in support of defendant Blake Lively from Child USA. And later on in this video, I'll get to something that I've discovered about Child USA. But very strange. Not really sure what you're doing here. There's no children involved here. The children that you maybe should be looking into are, I don't know, the child that was in Deadpool and Wolverine and didn't want to do it and then was forced to do it. Not once, not twice, up to 500 times. Say profanity. So let's just read their intro because I think it is very strange. Child USA is an interdisciplinary nonprofit think tank dedicated to preventing child abuse and neglect and ensuring access to justice for survivors. Child USA's mission is to employ in-depth legal analysis and cutting-edge social science research to come up with the best policies needed to increase child protection and the common good. Yeah, exactly. What children are involved here? This is very strange. I think y'all should be attaching yourself to actual cases where children are involved that need your help. This is a very strange, I don't know, that's all I'm going to say about it. But like, the organization has advised Congress, state legislatures, governors, and courts on the constitutionality of revival window legislation, anti-SLAPP protections, and the other laws aimed at increasing survivors' opportunity to access justice. Child USA has filed amicus curiae briefs in state and federal courts across the country defending the constitutionality of such laws against First Amendment, due process, and equal protection challenge, including in cases involving retaliatory defamation claims. Child USA has a strong interest in the outcome of this case, which will shape the legal landscape for survivors in California and beyond. Child USA offers this brief to demonstrate that California Civil Code 47.1 is both constitutionally sound and essential to protect the rights of survivors of sexual violence, safeguard the integrity of public discourse, and ensure equitable access to justice. What is going on? This is so crazy. Enough is enough. I think the judge knows. He knows. He doesn't need any more. I feel like all of these people are coming out of the woodwork. It's just nuts. The filing of an amicus brief should be permitted if it will assist the judge by presenting ideas, arguments, theories, insights, facts, or data that are not to be found in the parties' briefs. Indeed, federal district courts frequently welcome amicus briefs from non-parties concerning legal issues that have potential ramifications beyond the parties directly involved. It doesn't. Like, this is wild how, like, if you want to pick a case, okay? But I'm telling you right now, this is not the one. This is not the one to get involved with. There are real victims, real survivors out there that need your help. This is not the one. Making Blake live. This is what she wants, you know. This is why she went on this whole new PR tour showing I'm fighting for all women. I'm doing it. She wants to rebrand herself as the head of the Me Too movement and become some big, you know, super feminist who's a girl's girl and for girls and is here to protect and support all women, when we know by her own words and actions through the last 15 to 20 years that is simply not the case. That is not the case when it comes to Blake Lively. That isn't who she is. She's mean and cold and bitter. Okay? Period. This is another amicus here. Motion to leave to file brief of Amici Curiae Sanctuary for Families, National Organization for Women, National Organization for Women, New York City, Women's Justice Now, New York Cyber Abuse Task Force, blah, 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 whatever that one is, Women's Equal Rights Justice, New York City Alliance Against Sexual Assault, Coalition Against Trafficking in Women, National Network to End Domestic Violence, Esperanza United, New York State Anti-Trafficking Coalition, Her Justice, and Urban Resource Institute in support of defendant Blake Lively. What is going on? This is like, it reeks you've been paying people off. It reeks you're begging. It reeks tit for tat. It reeks really, y'all all got together. It reeks. Like, it's just desperate. And they're still filing these amicus when Blake Lively herself is voluntarily withdrawing her emotional infliction and distress claims. What? What? And this is where it gets crazy, because Blake Lively isn't a domestic violence survivor. She's not a survivor of violence, right? She's claiming sexual harassment, which, yes, is a violation. Okay, it's a violation. But the way these people put it is, wow. Like, for example, let's just look at this opening statement. Amici, led by Sanctuary for Families, are leading nonprofit organizations, victim advocates, and professionals from around the world dedicating to advancing the safety and well-being of survivors of domestic violence. What are you doing here then? Justin Baldoni and Blake weren't in a relationship. It's strange. It's getting really weird at this point, okay? It's very weird. Collectively, Amici provide a broad range of legal and other services to victims and survivors of sexual violence, which broadly includes sexual assault, sexual harassment, stalking, and sexual exploitation. Annex A to Amici's proposed breach, attached here to as Exhibit 1, provides a description of Amici's respective missions and contributions to address these critical issues. I agree. I think these organizations are great. I think more victims and survivors need defense, need help, need assistance. Again, this ain't the case, babe. Like, have you guys been paying attention to what is actually going on? Have you read the lawsuits, the complaints, the counter complaints? Did you even look over Justin Baldoni's timeline of relevant events? Did you read all the emails where Blake Lively was literally threatening to remove Taylor Swift's music if they didn't take Justin off the poster, if they didn't give her everything that she wanted? Have you read through all of this stuff? It's giving clowns at this point. Like, honestly, I'm so sorry, but like, this ain't the case. There are real cases out there, I bet right now, thousands, that could use your help, with people who don't have the resources, who are actually survivors. They need your help. Okay? I'm not even going to get through any more of this because it is just it's given paid off. It's giving desperate. It's giving tit for tat. It's giving, hey, I'll give you a big donation and help you out if you do this for me. That's what it's given, honestly. The Wayfair people did respond to Ryan Reynolds' motion and request for sanctioning the Wayfair people for not, I guess, answering them or whatever. They want sanctions on them, even though they sent letters to all of the Wayfair parties saying, hey, we're going to file for Rule 11 and having sanctions. And the Wayfair parties responded why you can't do that and why it's not a good idea. And you already argued these in your motion to dismiss, so you can't have both. They just went ahead, Blake and Ryan both just went ahead within the same 24 hours and filed the sanctions motion anyway. So they had already responded to Blake Lively, so I'm not going to go through the entire thing because it's almost the same, but there are some relevant information here. So the consolidated plaintiff's opposition to consolidated defendant Ryan Reynolds' motion for Rule 11 sanctions against Jamie Hees, Steve Soretz, Melissa Nathan, Jennifer Abel, It Ends With Us Movie LLC, and their counsel. Respectfully, the Wayfair parties. So the introduction we'll just read for show. It's the consolidated defendants Rule 11 motion against all of the individuals that I've just named and their counsel. It's very important because they also want their counsel to pay their attorney fees. Ironically, the motion itself borders on frivolous, as it contravenes Rule 11's 1993 Advisory Committee notes and unanimous authority governing Rule 11 sanctions, which teach that Rule 11 motions should not be employed as a discovery device or to test the legal sufficiency or efficiency of allegations in the pleadings. Other motions are available for this purpose. Thus, Rule 11 should not be confused with Rule 12b motion to dismiss for failure to state a claim for a relief, in a Rule 11 motion based on a deficiency in the pleadings is improper, particularly whereas here it is based on arguments substantially identical to those made in support of a motion to dismiss for failure to state a claim. Reynolds' motion is cynically silent on this point, even though it was conveyed to Reynolds in plaintiff's response to Reynolds' Rule 11 safe harbor letters. Reynolds similarly fails to note that he has filed a Rule 12 motion to dismiss, rating pleading effects that are substantially the same as those that are in the heart of his Rule 11 motion, which is literally what everyone said when they filed sanctions. Everybody, every lawyer, every video I watched was like, what is going on? This is the last stage. This is the most extreme thing that you would ever file, and everything you're arguing, you already filed in your motion to dismiss. So it's very strange, but In fact, given the plain import of the advisory notes and relevant case law, Reynolds' motion is nothing more than a transparent effort to tarnish the Wayfarer parties and their counsel in the eyes of the court and the press. Exactly the type of conduct Rule 11 is designed to discourage. So then they kind of go into the background that on April 23rd, 2025, Ryan Reynolds did send them 6 safe harbor letters threatening that, you know what, we are going to file sanctions 11s, for you on the ground to that you didn't plead your claims for this, that. And they responded being like, you already did that in your motion to dismiss. But undeterred to Ryan Reynolds, he still filed a Rule 11 motion for sanctions, even though he still has his pending Rule 12 motion of dismissal. And basically the Wayfarer people again are saying, you can't file the Rule 11 and say, oh, it's because we filed meritless, frivolous claims with the court and we're using the docket and abusing the docket, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can't do that. In fact, you're the one that's now abusing the docket and filing frivolous motions and claims because this was frivolous. You know what I'm saying? Reynolds sees sanctions for pleadings deficiencies he has already attacked or could have attacked in his pending motion to dismiss. Purported pleading defects, particularly those already before the court in a pending motion to dismiss, are not a proper subject to a Rule 11 motion and fall far short of the rigorous test defining extraordinary misconduct worthy of 11 sanction. On a final note, Ryan Reynolds fails to cite any authority for the notion articulated in his motion that by opposing the motion to dismiss, rather than merely amending at the first hint of criticism, plaintiffs have abrogated the well-entrenched authority of Rule 11, does not apply to test the sufficiency of pleadings, particularly where a motion to dismiss is pending. Put another way, Reynolds fails to provide any support for the claim that plaintiffs are subject to Rule 11 sanctions for waiting until a ruling on their motion to dismiss to amend. This is not surprising, as there is none. And then what I love is in red here, where it says, plaintiffs are entitled to sanctions for the reasons set above and their abject failure to bring relevant authority to the court's attention. Reynolds and his counsel should be sanctioned in an amount sufficient to compensate plaintiffs for the first time and resources expended in responding to Reynolds' meritless motion, Rule 11 motion, and deter any further misuse of Rule 11. Conclusion, for the foregoing reasons, plaintiffs respectfully request that the court enter an order denying Reynolds' motion for sanctions in its entirety and awarding sanctions sufficient to compensate the Wayfarers parties for the expense of responding to Reynolds' Rule 11 sanctions. Yeah, pay up already. This is getting absurd. And now, before we move on and get into a few things I've unearthed about Child USA, we'll get back to those advocacy groups. Let's continue on with the court dockets. This is the last one. Stephanie motherfucking Jones has replied. So she has been named as a third-party defendant, Jonesworks and Stephanie Jones, because Jennifer Abel worked for Jonesworks during the whole time that this smear campaign happened, this coordinated smear campaign, and they've been kind of going back and forth as to whether or not she should have indemnification or not, meaning that she should be responsible for her employee, Jennifer Abel. Now, we're not going to read her entire response, but there are a few important things that you should know because I am actually personally sick of Stephanie Jones, okay? That's just me personally. I think we are here right now because of poor PR games, because of Leslie Sloan and Stephanie Jones. I think that is why we're here today. That's my opinion. It's alleged. Take it. Do with it what you want. But anyway, after seeing her get that little win from her Edgeworth security team, I'm just like over this girl. I hope she does not get dismissed in this case. And I will have a lot of questions if she does. But this is it. Third-party defendant Jonesworks LLC reply in further support of its motion to dismiss Jennifer Abel's third-party complaint seeking indemnification. Now, we've gone over, we've been going over all the court docket, so you have to go back to the other videos to see what the original motion was and then the response to it. But this is her further motion to really try to get out of this thing. She states, Jennifer Abel seeks to have it both ways. I say this every time I read a Stephanie Jones docket because they are so brash and like rude and belittling. And I get it, like you want the best and snarky, but it really shows you the type of person that she, like, you know, that she is. But I said that in my last video too, because a bunch of lawyers do say that, like, if their client is this way, then most likely their lawyer representing them are the exact same. However, who can't have it both ways? I am really, like, on the side that this fake lawsuit and this sham subpoena, can we get to the bottom of that just first, right off the bat? Right off the bat, because whenever I hear of Leslie Sloan and Stephanie Jones, I think of that fake lawsuit filed by Blake Lively's team using Ryan Reynolds' inactive company, Van Zandt, naming John Doe's 1 through 10, and they all got Jennifer Abel's messages. Tell me how that makes sense. Okay, what else did you get? I would love to know what else was disclosed in that subpoena that you had to filter through, or did you just get Jennifer Abel's right away because you knew exactly what you wanted? Which means if you knew exactly what you wanted, why did you write John Doe's 1 through 10? Like, y'all played the court system. It's shady. So whenever I see them attacking other people, I just think y'all are so shady and you're trying to have it both ways. You're trying to get out of this thing while you actually started it. Jennifer Abel seeks to have it both ways. She alleges in counterclaims before this court that she was pursuing her own agenda, despite being hindered in her efforts by her employer. Yet, here she reverses course, claiming that her efforts fall under the purview of indemnification. Abel's clandestine actions defied her employer and were instead in pursuit of personal interests. Indemnification and contribution claims cannot be sustained in the face of these pleaded admissions and should be dismissed. Then the argument is Abel cannot confide the court's review to avoid dismissal. Apparently recognizing that her own pleadings, words, and actions doom her claim for indemnification, Abel seeks to improperly narrow the scope of what this court may consider in resolving Jonesworks' motion. She cannot do so. First, Abel argues that the court cannot consider Lively's amended complaint or her own answer to it, but Abel's own case law belies this argument. Indeed, these cases make clear that facts stated on the face of the complaint, documents incorporated in the complaint by reference, matters of which judicial notice may be taken, and documents integral to a claim for indemnification must be considered. At the core of what this court must decide whether Abel plausibly alleges that the actions described in Lively's amended complaint and her answer to it were within the scope of Abel's employment, and Abel herself expressly relies on the allegations in Lively's amended complaint in defending the vagueness of her contribution claim, expressly incorporating as support for her claim Lively's claims against Abel, and the alleged injuries about which Lively complains. Abel cannot selectively invoke Lively's allegations where it suits her, but demand that they be ignored when it does not. I feel like all Jennifer Abel did was do exactly what all PR people do. Because I would love to see Leslie Sloan's communications. I would love to see her text messages with Blake. I would love to see Leslie Sloan's, all of her text messages and communications in the summer of 2024 with every single reporter. Because you know dang well the devil works hard, but Leslie Sloan works harder. Okay? You know she was probably doing worse, more than what Jennifer Abel ever did. Okay? It's like, my gosh. I feel like Jennifer Abel was just doing what any good PR person would do. Listening to her clients, defending them. You know, she wasn't putting out all these evil, bad stories about Blake. Actually, a lot of reporters didn't even report on it. It was content creators. And all the content creators that were, you know, smearing Blake at the time, most, if not all, have come out and said, yo, I wasn't working for Wayfair. I just don't like Blake Lively. Do you know? Lastly, this court should reject Abel's plea that it disregard her own incriminating communications and admissions based on the specious argument that Jonesworks' inclusion of Abel's own words in its motion was deceptive. For instance, Abel argues that Jonesworks claims that Abel developed and executed a smear campaign to bury and destroy Lively. constitutes deceptive conduct, even though Abel admits in her pleadings to exchanging those messages with Melissa Nathan, in which the two just planned just that. Abel's answer to Lively. Abel has no response to these statements and cannot evade the effects of her own admissions by leveling groundless complaints about her own words being used against her. You can say whatever you want. It doesn't mean that you did it. Because they said, yeah, let's bury her. Yeah, let's go to war. Yeah, let's do it. That doesn't mean anything. You should see some of the texts between coworkers, okay? Between people. I mean, just because they said something doesn't mean that they actually did anything. Where is the evidence? Where is the proof that anything happened? Where is it? At this point, they must have had some smoking gun. They must have something. They must have something that they could leak, they could drop, they can show, they can prove that this actually happened. Zero. Nothing so far. Abel must be held to the bargain she struck. Anyway, then they go into whether or not it should be New York law, blah, blah, blah. You know, we've gone over that so many times, whether it's New York law, California law. New York law applies to all aspects of Abel's employment, even though she worked in California, lived in California, and her employment was in California. They are fighting hard to get that into New York. The indemnification Abel agreed to, not the one she now wishes she had agreed to. So they're saying the Wayfair people came back and said that even though she did sign this employment agreement, indemnification actually, the court of law actually squashes any contract, right? Like the court of law is upheld versus any little contract that you have with your employer and employee. She's arguing that. Abel next argues that she is entitled to common law indemnification from Jonesworks in spite of agreeing to a narrow contractual indemnification provision. She is wrong. When presented with an ambiguous written agreement expressing the parties' intent to limit a common law obligation, courts give effect to the parties' expressed written intent. Then they go into a bunch of laws that say that exact same thing. 3. Abel does not plausibly allege that her harmful conduct was within the scope of her employment. I don't know about that. I think that is exactly what she's arguing. That you were also involved, Stephanie Jones. You literally were tagged in the emails, CC'd in the emails, texts, everything, group chats. You were there along the entire way. So I'm pretty sure that is actually what she's arguing, but Abel's entirely unsupported arguments that she was acting within the scope of her employment are without merit. First, Abel offers no case law supporting her wishful agreement that her express defiance of Jonesworks' instructions and quest for personal enrichment were within the scope of her employment. This is because the case law uniformly holds that an employee pursuing her own interests is not acting in the scope of her employment. She's not doing her own interest. She was working for your client, Wayfarer and Justin BALDONI. Second, Abel points to a host of her conclusory allegations without even acknowledging that those allegations are contradicted by, let's just restart that. Second, Abel points to a host of her conclusory allegations without even acknowledging that those allegations are contradicted by her more specific factual allegations. For example, Abel seeks to rely on her conclusory assertion that she, along with Ms. Melissa Nathan, conducted a smear campaign against Lively in obedience to Jonesworks' directions, but ignores that she pleads elsewhere that Jonesworks expressly told her not to hire Nathan. As detailed above in Section 1, Abel cannot make inconsistent pleadings across the related matter simply to avoid a motion to dismiss. Third, Abel's efforts to distinguish Jonesworks' case law is unpersuasive. Then they go into all of the cases that the Wayfair people have cited and why it doesn't work here. And then she's saying that Abel elected to inflict harm on Lively through a smear campaign rather than physical harm is a distinction without a difference. Her actions nonetheless constituted a significant departure from the normal methods of performance of her duties at Jonesworks. Her unsupported and conclusory assertion that the actions were nothing but a regular public relations activity does not change this, especially where the activities were carried out in express defiance of her employer's instructions. I mean, there are texts that tell her not to hire Melissa Nathan, but if the client wants to hire her, you got to listen to the client, period. So, I don't know. I do not think this is a very good woman. So I'm a little bit biased, and I'm especially biased on horrible bosses and toxic workplace environments. Okay. Abel's contribution claim alleges none of the required elements. In defense of her contribution claim, Abel argues that in over a dozen detailed paragraphs, she alleges that Jonesworks directed Abel to provide public relations services to Wayfarer and BALDONI, for which Lively sued her. And as a result, Jonesworks contributed to the same alleged injuries about which Lively complains. This argument is unavailing. First, Abel's argument confirms that she is not alleging that Jonesworks engaged in any independently tortious conduct that contributed to the harm Lively suffered, as is the purpose of a claim for contribution, but merely repeating her indemnifications argue under a new title. This fails for all the reasons set forth in the motion and this reply, and by bringing both claims, Abel jeopardizes recovery on either one. Second, Abel's attempt to sidestep her failure to plead a contribution claim is meritless. Abel must allege that the Jonesworks owed Lively a duty and that a breach of that duty contributed to the harm. Abel has failed to make either of these showings and does not argue otherwise. In fact, the word duty is not mentioned in the amended third-party complaint, which alone is dispositive. And absent any allegations of a duty, it is unsurprising that Abel likewise fails to adequately allege a breach of any duty. Abel's conclusory allegations and arguments that Jonesworks contributed to Lively's injuries are meaningless absent a clear articulation of duties and breaches. Without plausible allegations of any of the elements of a contribution claim, that claim should be dismissed. Conclusion: for all the reasons above and those in Jonesworks' motion, that motion should be granted. Bleh! Get out of here. Let's now rewind now that all those court dockets are done. That's all that's been submitted so far today. Yes, big loss for Justin Baldoni. I feel like getting those Edgeworth security, that subpoena through, and being able to have that subpoena would show a lot of Stephanie Jones's dirty work. And gosh, and I do hope that Blake and Ryan had to pay sanctions to Wayfair for wasting our time and the court's time with their Rule 11 motion sanctions, okay? Period. If you don't watch Claire.Easel or not following her on the TikTok over there, she goes down rabbit holes. I mean, she uncovers a lot of stuff. I've seen her uncover a lot about Reynolds' businesses, etc., etc., etc. And now she has made a video uncovering Child USA. And when I first watched this video, I was like, excuse me, what did that man do? And I had to go do a little bit more digging and some research. But basically, a man who is on the board of directors, who is also a lawyer for Child USA, he was doing some shady stuff with those victims, okay? Jane Doe went to, I suppose, a YouTuber, and they did this whole thing called The Rabbit, and this video exposed Mr. Brian Kent, and he was let go, but a Philly lawyer for sexual abuse victims left his firm after an ex-client's complaint was leaked. It took it literally going viral and on YouTube for them to take any accountability and let this man go. And they did make a statement shortly after saying the Child USA Board of Directors has issued the following statement regarding a complaint filed against a former board member. The Board of Directors of Child USA recently learned of a confidential complaint filed with the Disciplinary Board of the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania regarding allegations of misconduct made against attorney Brian Kent. At the time, Mr. Kent was a member of Child USA's Board of Directors. As soon as this information came to the attention of Child USA's board, it immediately took action to address the allegations against Mr. Kent. On April 15th, 2024, Mr. Kent tendered his resignation to the board without further comment. Mr. Kent had not been informed the board of the complaint filed against him prior to his resignation. So this is what I mean by glass houses, y'all, because everything will be found out. Everything will be found out. And the fact that you could just do one Google search about Child USA is not a good look for Blake. First, she hires the B613 lawyer who literally used to get paid to pay victim, like his job was to pay victims at Airbnbs. of RAPE, victims of RAPE, he would go with a blank check and make them zip it, right? He worked for the black box Airbnb. That's who she first hired. Now she has these people coming on, and it's just like one after the other after the other. You can't make it up. And careful about these advocacy groups, because as we already uncovered, Child USA, Leslie Sloan, Blake's lawyer, already donated $10,000 to them. Do you know what I mean? The Sanctuary for Families has them all. The California Women's Law Center, Ezra Hudson, Blake Lively's lawyer, sits on the board of directors. Okay? Kathy Wanderley, a partner at Blake Lively's law firm, sits on the board of directors. Okay? And soon, it's all going to tie in together. So it's just BS. And you know what else is complete BS? And actually, guys, it's getting weird, okay? It's getting super weird. It's cringy. It's weird. It's distasteful. It's gross. It's giving super narcissistic. It's giving I don't give an F. It's giving who cares? I'm the best. I'm untouchable. Money, 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 power, power, power. You're going to love me no matter what. That's literally what it's giving. Because tell me how Ryan Reynolds is out here buying more things, more companies, getting his hands in other things. It is all over the news today that Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman has just bought an Australian sailing team. Why? What are you doing? What is going on? And you know what I really think that this is covering up? Why they waited till today? Because yesterday it was reported that Ryan Reynolds' R-rated Animal Friends movie is being pushed now to the spring of 2026. That is getting pushed in the headlines now because Ryan Reynolds has come out and just bought, he just bought an Australian sailing team. Him and his BF, best friend, not boyfriend, Hugh Jackman. Well, who knows? Yeah, just today, they're in the middle of this massive lawsuit being sued for over $400 million. And this guy's out here buying a sailing team, going on late night talk shows, going on podcasts, living his best life. His money runs deep. His hands are in so many people's pockets. So many. Now he has the pickleball courts coming out, movies coming out, this signed to Tim Hortons. Now he just bought an Australian sailing team. It's so gross. Like, it's really giving to me, like pure disgust. Like, it's okay for you to take a time out, take a break, because we have seen more of you, Ryan Reynolds, and Blake Lively and Hugh Jackman collectively. We have seen more of you since August of 2024 than we ever have. Ever. Literally in the last 8 to 9 months. Every day, y'all are doing something every day. It's weird. It's okay to take a time out and deal with your stuff and come back, because this is not giving what you think it's giving. This is giving ignorance. It's giving narcissists. It's giving I'm so rich and wealthy. How are you over here every day talking about Steve Soritz being a billionaire and how that's bad and he's a billionaire, blah, blah, blah. They have a billionaire in their corner. You're over here buying sailing teams. I don't want to hear it ever again. I don't want to hear it. I never want to hear from Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds' mouth ever how Brian Freeman and Wayfarer are using the media, how they're not taking it seriously and they're only doing this to further hurt them, and also how Steve Soritz is a billionaire. I never want to hear it again, because this is giving you can't touch me. And guess what? We're not here for it. I'm not here for it. I can't wait for this downfall, because it is about to start if it hasn't already. I mean, already movies being pushed into 2026. I don't think that's going to save anything that these people are in the next little while. That's for sure. Well, so far that's everything that's happened today from me and what's happening in the courts. There's a lot. This week has been a lot of back and forth, a lot of lawyers being added, a lot of people trying to get out of it. And we'll just see what happens. I really hope the judge comes back sooner than later with some rulings on those dismissals. I hope no one gets dismissed, including the New York Times. I think that they are all culprits. I think there's enough evidence to show that. I think the metadata doesn't lie. And I really, really hope the judge sees it too. Like, I truly, truly, truly do. I hope Wayfarer and Justin Baldoni and Melissa Nathan and Jennifer Abel and Jamie Heath and Steve Soritz, I hope they get some really good news this week. It was a small celebration for them that Blake Lively voluntarily is going to withdraw her 10th and 11th cause of infliction of emotional distress. However, it hasn't been done yet, right? So we'll see if they can come to an agreement on that, if it's with or without prejudice, and we'll see what happens. But that's it for me today. Drop all of your comments. I really want to know what y'all think about all of this, and I'm sorry that I was the bearer of bad news when it comes to Stephanie Jones getting a win. Check, she did it, give it to her. We'll see what happens next, but I hope you're having the most amazing day. I'm currently going to do a little side quest video right now and talk a little bit about the pattern that I've seen with Ryan Reynolds. There's a story out there that I've had my finger on for months and couldn't really figure it out or get into it, but I've been investigating it, and that will be next on the docket here in Frame. And yeah, I don't know what to leave you guys with. Mostly I usually come prepared with something that I want to talk about or leave you with, or you know, but I don't know. I'm just kind of having like a good time, and I've been having a good time for a while. And I'm liking it, and I'm happy, and I'm just going with the flow without expectation of what's to come. And that's very scary because I am a plan, and I always have these high expectations of outcome, and I'm rewiring, you know, I'm trying to rewire and just follow the feeling of peace and happiness and what I love to do and how I want to show up and who I choose to be every day. And that's kind of just what I've been focusing on. So I'm really grateful and thankful that y'all are here with me, and we can laugh and joke around and have a good time, but still get down to business. And, you know, at the end of the day, I really am just a girl who loves her lip gloss and lingerie and wants to have a good time, as well as craft story and be on camera and perform. That's who I am. That's it, period. I'm a girly, okay? I'm a girl's girl. I'm a girly. And yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I'm just going to leave you with that until I figure out what else I'm going to say, okay? But I hope you're having the best day. And yeah, it's Thursday, so we are one day away from Friday. And I'll have that next video out to you soon as I fully wrap my head around some things that I've discovered, okay? Drop your comments. It was nice being here. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon. Love you. Bye.